First story, Lost in the Shadows. The night was darker than usual, and the rain pelted the windshield of my car with an incessant rhythm. I was driving through a stretch of road in rural Texas that seemed to go on forever. The GPS had lost signal, leaving me reliant on dimly lit signposts that provided little comfort. My fuel gauge was inching closer to empty, and a sense of unease began to creep in as I realized there were no towns or houses in sight. Just when panic was about to take over, I spotted the faint glow of a gas station up ahead. A solitary oasis of light in the otherwise impenetrable darkness. As I pulled in, a shiver ran down my spine. The station was eerily deserted. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting long, distorted shadows that danced on the cracked pavement. I stepped out of the car, the rain soaking me instantly. The station's windows were grimy, making it difficult to see inside. I hesitated before opening the creaky door and entered. The bell above the door jingled, echoing through the quiet store. The scent of stale coffee and motor oil hung in the air. Behind the counter stood a man, his face hidden beneath a worn-out baseball cap. He glanced up, his eyes locking onto mine with an unsettling intensity. "Evening," he muttered, his voice raspy. I nodded in response, trying to ignore the unease creeping up my spine. "I need some gas," I managed to say. He nodded and grabbed the nozzle, his gaze never leaving me. As I watched the meter tick up, a feeling of vulnerability washed over me. I was alone in this desolate place with a stranger who seemed more like a shadow than a person. "Long drive?" he asked, breaking the silence. "Yeah, got a bit lost," I replied, trying to sound casual. "Easy to do around these parts," he said cryptically. "You should be careful, especially at night." I thanked him as he handed me the receipt, my heart pounding in my chest. The gas station's flickering lights seemed to grow dimmer as I made my way back to the car. With a sense of urgency, I hopped in and turned the key, praying that the engine would roar to life, and thankfully it did. As I pulled away from the station, my eyes locked onto the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of the man still standing in the doorway. The rain continued to pour, obscuring my view, and within seconds he vanished from sight. The rest of the journey was tense, the wind howling through the trees and the rain battering against the car. Every shadow seemed to take on a life of its own, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was following me. The road stretched on endlessly, the GPS still devoid of a signal, and the desolation seemed to press in from all sides. Eventually, the first signs of civilization emerged on the horizon, and my relief was palpable. Pulling into a well-lit rest area, I glanced back at the road I had just traveled. The gas station was nowhere in sight, as if it had been swallowed by the night. Second story, Silent Strangers. The road stretched ahead like a black ribbon, disappearing into the arid desert landscape of Arizona. It was late, and I had been driving for hours, the monotony of the road leaving my mind heavy with fatigue. Just when my eyelids were beginning to droop, the glow of a gas station's neon lights pierced the darkness. Pulling into the station, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. The harsh desert wind greeted me as I stepped out of the car, rustling the signs and sending a chill down my spine. The air smelled of dust and gasoline. Inside, the gas station was dimly lit, the shelves sparsely stocked with essentials. A lone cashier stood behind the counter, his features partially hidden by a thick beard. He glanced up at me, his eyes devoid of any emotion. "Can I help you?" he asked in a monotone voice. "Just some gas," I replied, forcing a smile. As the pump filled my tank, I gazed out into the darkness. The desert seemed to stretch endlessly, a vast expanse of emptiness that both fascinated and unnerved me. A group of people stood at the edge of the station's lights, their figures partially obscured by the shadows. They appeared to be talking amongst themselves, their hushed voices carried by the wind. I paid for the gas and thanked the cashier, feeling an inexplicable sense of urgency to leave. As I got back into my car and began to pull away, the group of strangers turned to look at me, or at least that's what it felt like. Their eyes gleamed in the darkness, their expressions inscrutable. I drove for a while, my unease growing with every passing mile. The road seemed to stretch on endlessly, the desert's eerie silence broken only by the sound of my engine. And then, up ahead, I saw the gas station once again. Confusion gripped me. How was it possible? I hadn't made any turns, and the station should have been long behind me. The neon lights beckoned me, their glow now feeling more like a warning than a sanctuary. Reluctantly, I pulled in, the same cashier staring at me with vacant eyes. "Back so soon?" he droned. I didn't mean to come back," I stammered, my heart pounding. He simply shrugged, offering no further explanation. I pumped gas again, my hands trembling. The group of strangers still lingered at the edge of the lights, their presence ominous and unsettling. As I drove away from the station once more, a sense of dread settled over me. The road seemed to loop back on itself, the gas station appearing in my rearview mirror yet again. Panic gripped me, and I slammed my foot on the gas pedal, determined to escape this nightmarish cycle. Hours later, my car sputtered to a stop. I had run out of gas in the middle of the desert. Alone, surrounded by darkness, I felt a chill run down my spine. And then, in the distance, I saw them, the group of strangers, approaching me with slow, deliberate steps. Third story, Highway Hitchhiker. The Nevada night was vast and unending, the stars above shining like distant beacons. I had been driving for hours on a nearly deserted highway, my mind a haze of exhaustion. The hum of the engine and the monotony of the road were lulling me into a trance. As fatigue began to overtake me, I noticed a figure on the side of the road, a hitchhiker, thumb extended, seeking a ride. I hesitated, my instincts battling with my weariness. But something about the situation felt off. The hitchhiker's appearance was shrouded in darkness, making it hard to discern any details. Curiosity got the better of me, and I slowed down, rolling down the window. "Need a lift?" I called out. The hitchhiker's face was obscured by the shadows of a tattered hoodie, but a voice, surprisingly warm and melodic, reached my ears. "Yes, please. I've been waiting for hours." I felt a pang of sympathy and unlocked the passenger door. The hitchhiker climbed in, the hood still concealing their features. "Thanks for stopping," they said, their voice tinged with gratitude. "No problem," I replied, trying to sound casual. "Where are you headed?" "Anywhere but here," they answered, a hint of sadness in their voice. As we drove, conversation flowed between us. The hitchhiker's stories were captivating, filled with tales of adventure and a sense of longing for escape. Despite the anonymity of the darkened car, their presence felt strangely comforting, as if we were sharing an intimate moment amidst the vast emptiness of the desert. I noticed a gas station up ahead, its lights like a beacon in the night. "I need to stop for gas," I said, signaling to turn into the station. The hitchhiker's reaction was immediate, a hand on my arm, fingers gripping with unexpected strength. "No, please. Keep driving." Surprised by the sudden urgency in their voice, I hesitated. "Is something wrong?" "Just trust me," they replied, their grip tightening. Against my better judgment, I continued driving, the gas station fading into the distance behind us. The hitchhiker seemed to relax, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly avoided a dangerous situation. As we ventured deeper into the desert, my unease grew. The hitchhiker's stories had taken on a darker tone, their words laced with a sense of foreboding. My eyes were fixed on the road, and I noticed a series of tire tracks leading off the highway into the darkness. "Turn here," the hitchhiker suddenly instructed, pointing to the tracks. I hesitated, my heart racing. "Why? What's out there?" "Trust me," they repeated. With a mixture of fear and curiosity, I turned onto the tire tracks. The desert seemed to swallow us whole, the darkness pressing in from all sides. Minutes turned into hours, and I realized I had lost all sense of direction. "Stop here," the hitchhiker said finally, their voice carrying an air of finality. I brought the car to a halt, my pulse pounding in my ears. The hitchhiker turned to me, finally pulling back their hood. In the dim light of the car's interior, their face was pale and gaunt, eyes reflecting a haunting mixture of sadness and desperation. "Thank you for bringing me this far," they said softly, their gaze intense. "But you can't go any farther." Before I could react, they opened the door and stepped out into the darkness. I called out after them, my voice trembling, but they vanished into the night. I turned the car around, my heart heavy with a mix of confusion and fear. As I drove back onto the highway, I glanced in the rearview mirror, catching a fleeting glimpse of the hitchhiker standing at the edge of the road, watching me disappear into the distance. Thank you for sticking with us through the whole video. Also, I recommend you this video, one of the scariest on my channel. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and like these videos. This helps me bring you more thrilling content every day. If this video sent shivers down your spine, let me know in the comments.